Through the Desert by Henryk Sienkiewicz. If you really enjoy my work, you can buy me a coffee using the link below the video. Chapter 25. The tree had two openings, a large one half a yard from the ground, and a smaller one somewhere about the height of the first story of a townhouse. Hardly had Mia thrown the burning branches into the lower one than large bats began to fly out of the top one, and blinded by the sun, they circled around the tree, screaming as loud as they could. But the real master of the house soon wriggled out of the lower opening, and it proved to be an enormous boa constrictor, which, though apparently still half asleep, had devoured the remnants of its last feast, and not until the smoke reached its nostrils had it awakened and sought safety. At the sight of this iron-colored body squirming out of the smoking tree hollow, uncoiling itself like an enormous spring, Staś picked Nell up in his arms and started to run away with her in the direction of the open wilderness. The reptile, itself frightened by the smoke and fire, did not follow them, but wended its way through the grass and the piles of baggage and disappeared very swiftly in the direction of the gorge, to hide itself in the crevices of the rocks. The children regained their courage. Staś set Nell on the ground, hurried to fetch his rifle, and then ran in the direction of the gorge after the snake. Nell followed close behind. After going a short distance, they beheld such an extraordinary sight that they both stood rooted to the ground. High above the gorge, the body of the snake appeared for an instant, wriggled in the air, then fell to the ground. After a while it appeared a second time, then fell down again. When the children reached the edge of the ravine, they saw to their surprise that their new friend, the elephant, was playing with the snake, and after having thrown it in the air twice, he was now stamping on its head with his feet, which resembled blocks of wood. Having finished this performance, he lifted the still squirming body with his trunk. This time he did not throw it into the air, but right into the waterfall. Then he swayed from side to side, fanned himself with his ears, and began to fix his eyes on Nell, and at last put out his trunk toward her, as if demanding a reward for his heroic and sensible deed. Illustration: at the sight of the boa constrictor squirming out of the smoking tree hollow, uncoiling itself like an enormous spring, Staś picked up Nell in his arms and started to run away. Nell immediately ran toward the tent and returned with a quantity of wild figs, a few of which she threw to him. He picked them up carefully and swallowed one after another. Those that fell into deep crevices he picked up by blowing into the cracks with such force that stones the size of one's fist flew into the air along with the figs. The children showed their appreciation of these tricks by laughing and clapping their hands. Nell repeatedly brought more food, and every time she threw a fig down, she maintained that he was quite tame now, and that it would be safe for her to go down to him. "Do you see, Staś, now we shall have a protector, for he is afraid of nothing in the wilderness, not even of a lion or a snake or a crocodile. Besides, he is very good, and surely he ought to be fond of us." "If he should become tame," said Staś, "so that I might leave you in his care, I would not be afraid to go off hunting, for I could not find a better protector for you in the whole of Africa." After a while he continued, "It is a fact that the elephants of Africa are wilder, but I have read that the Asiatic ones, for instance, have a peculiar weakness for children. In India there has never been a case of an elephant hurting a child, and when one of these animals becomes enraged, as sometimes happens, children are sent to appease it. So you see. At any rate, you were right in preventing me from killing him." Thereupon Nell's eyes shone with joy. Standing on tiptoe, she laid both hands on Staś's shoulders, and leaning her head back and looking into his eyes, she asked, "I behaved as if I were. How old? Tell me, as if I were, how old?" And he answered, "At least 70. You do nothing but joke." "Well, be angry, but who will release the elephant?" On hearing this, Nell clung to him like a young kitten. "You, and I shall love you very much for it, and so will he." "I have already thought about it," said Staś, "but it will be a very troublesome thing to do. I shall not do it now, but only when we are ready to continue our journey." "Why?" "For this reason, because if I should release him before he is quite tame and before he has got used to us, he would immediately run away." "Oh, he will not leave me." "Do you think he is as fond of you as I am?" replied Stash somewhat impatiently. All further conversation was interrupted by the approach of Kali, who brought the slain zebra with its young one, which had been bitten to death by Saba. It was a lucky thing for the bulldog that he had followed Kali, and had therefore not been present at the routing out of the snake, for the dog would have followed it, and had he come within its reach, would have been squeezed to death in its coils long before Stash could have come to the rescue. He received a box on the ears from Stash for having torn to pieces the young zebra, but he did not seem to take this very much to heart, for he did not even put in his tongue, which had been hanging out ever since he came from the chase. Meanwhile, Stash gave Kali to understand that he intended to arrange a dwelling place in the tree, and told him what had happened when smoking out the tree trunk, and what the elephant had done to the snake. The thought of living in the giant tree, which not only served as a protection against the rain, but also against wild animals, pleased the Negro very much, but on the other hand, the elephant's behavior did not at all meet with his approval. "The elephant is stupid," said he, "and therefore he threw the nyoka snake into the rushing waters, but Kali knows that nyoka is very good to eat, and so he will fish it out of the water and roast it, for Kali is clever and a donkey." "Yes, you are a donkey, all right," answered Stash. "You surely do not want to eat a snake." "Nyoka is good," said Kali, and pointing to the dead zebra, he added, "Better than this nyama." Then they both walked toward the baobab tree and began to arrange the house. Kali took a flat stone, the shape of a large sieve, from the bank of the river, laid it down inside the tree trunk, and put more and more burning wood on it, taking care that the rotten wood in the inside of the tree did not catch fire, which would have set the entire tree ablaze. He said that he did this so that nothing could bite the great man and the little Bibi. It was soon apparent that this was no unnecessary precaution, for no sooner had the wreaths of smoke filled the interior of the tree and rushed out than all kinds of vermin began to creep out of the broken bark, black and cherry-colored beetles, plum-sized hairy spiders, caterpillars covered with finger-long prickly hairs, and all sorts of horrible poisonous vermin, whose bite might even cause death. From what was taking place on the exterior of the trunk, it could readily be imagined that many similar insects were meeting their fate in the clouds of smoke within, and the insects which fell to the grass from the bark and the lower branches were unmercifully killed with stones by Kali, who all the time stared fixedly at the two openings in the hollow trunk, as if afraid that some strange creature would appear at any minute. "Why do you look like that?" asked Stash. "Do you believe that there is another snake hidden in the tree?" "No, Kali is afraid of Msimu." "What's that, Msimu?" "Evil spirit. Have you ever seen a Msimu?" "No, but Kali has heard the dreadful noise made by Msimu in the sorcerers' huts." "So your sorcerers are not afraid of him?" "The sorcerers fully believe in him. They enter our huts and tell us that Msimu is angry, and the Negroes bring them bananas, honey, pombe, a beer made from a certain plant, eggs and meat, with which to propitiate Msimu." Stash raised his eyebrows. "I should think it would be delightful to be one of your sorcerers. But could this snake have been Msimu?" Kali shook his head. "If this had been so, the elephant would not have killed Msimu, but Msimu would have killed the elephant. Msimu is dead." A weird crackling sound suddenly interrupted him. From the lower cavity in the tree came a strange-looking cloud of red dust, after which the crackling became louder. Kali at once prostrated himself on his face and began to scream in terror. "Aka! Msimu! Aka! Aka! Aka!" At first Stash drew back too, but he soon regained his composure, and when Nell and Mia came running up, he explained the probable cause to them. "It is most likely," he said, "that layers of mold, loosened by the heat, have fallen down and smothered the fire. But Kali believes it was Msimu. Me shall pour water into the cavity, for if the fire is not smothered and the mold should ignite, it might burst out and the whole tree be consumed." Stash saw that Kali still lay prostrate in terror, repeating, "Aka! Aka!" So he picked up his rifle, shot into the cavity, then touched the boy with the butt of the gun, and said, "Your Msimu is shot. Don't be frightened." Kali raised himself a little, but remained on his knees. "Oh, great sir, is the master not even afraid of Msimu?" Stash's reply was a laugh. After a while, the Negro became calm and sat down to the meal prepared by Mia. It was very evident that his momentary fright had not affected his appetite, for in addition to a substantial helping of smoked meat, he ate the raw liver of the young zebra, not to mention the wild figs, quantities of which grew on a neighboring sycamore. Then he and Stash returned to the tree, where there was still plenty of work to be done, for it took more than 2 hours to take out the mold and ashes, the burned bats, the piles of roasted beetles, and other large insects. Stash wondered how the bats could have lived in such close proximity to the snake, but he concluded that the monster either disdained such small prey or could not reach it, being unable to uncoil itself inside the tree. The heat had caused the layers of mold to break off, and thus cleaned out the interior very thoroughly. Stash was delighted to see this, for the cavity was as spacious as a large room, and would be big enough not only to shelter 4 persons, but 10. The lower opening formed a door, the upper a window, and consequently it was neither dark nor stuffy in the giant tree. Stash decided to divide the interior into 2 rooms by means of the tent canvas. One of these he intended for Nell and Mia, and the other for himself, Kali, and Saba. The tree was not decayed at the top, therefore no rain could penetrate it, and in order to make it completely waterproof, it was only necessary to raise and prop the bark slightly over both openings, so as to form 2 gutters. They decided to strew the floor inside with sun-dried sand from the bank of the stream, and to cover this with a padding of dry moss. This was very hard work, especially for Kali, for he had also to smoke the meat, water the horses, and supply food for them all, as well as for the elephant, who continually reminded them of it by trumpeting. But the young Negro set to work with great zest and industry, arranging their new abode. The reason for his industry was discovered by Stash that very day. "If the great man and Bibi," said he, with his hands on his hips, "are to live in the tree, Kali will not have to build a large hedge for the night, and so he will have nothing to do in the evening." "So you like being idle, eh?" said Stash. "Kali is a man, and so he likes to be idle, for only women should work. And yet you see that I work for Bibi. But on the other hand, Bibi will have to work for the great man when she grows up, and should she refuse, the great man will surely beat her." At the very thought of this, Stash sprang up and cried angrily, "You fool, do you know what Bibi is?" "I don't know," answered the frightened boy. "Bibi is a good msimu." At this Kali fairly staggered. On finishing his work, he walked shyly up to Nell, prostrated himself on his face before her, and began in a beseeching, if not a frightened voice, to repeat, "Aka, aka, aka!" And the good msimu looked at him wonderingly with her lovely sea-green eyes, for she could not understand what had happened, and what was the matter with Kali.
Remember to subscribe.